Hey everyone, it's Josh. I have a message today for those who are seeking God, but it starts out as and is geared towards pastors and preachers. But I think those who are seeking, those who are trying to find someone to guide them to a relationship with Jesus Christ, hopefully it'll be helpful for you too. Now in 1 Corinthians 8:2, Paul writes, "If anyone supposes that he knows anything, he has not yet known as he ought to know." It goes back to the old Socrates, I think it was. True wisdom is knowing you know nothing. I could be wrong. It could be Plato, Aristotle. I get those old philosophers mixed up sometimes. I'm not too concerned about them anymore. I used to study them quite a bit. But for you pastors and preachers, priests, anyone, I want to urge you to go to the poor and the weak and the oppressed and the persecuted and seek out those among them who have been born again in the Spirit. Those are the ones who can best guide you to Jesus Christ. And for too many even, with the Holy Spirit, they are still like a ship crossing the ocean. And one little change of course, one tiny little half a degree blown off course, and you end up thousands of miles away. Sadly, too many of us who have been drawn to Christ, who have been called to Christ, we end up swelling with pride or manipulated by the devil somehow, giving in to lust or desire. Not that we won't do this, not that we're not going to sin, but we start to justify that sin is part of our calling, part of our mission, part of our war, our spiritual war we are waging for Christ. We can justify all kinds of things. We can justify that we are the chosen one and you need to all follow me, and that is dangerous. It is dangerous, I tell you. Anyone claiming this, we need to stop. Not saying they don't have the Holy Spirit in them. I'm not saying they're not a good person. I am saying we need to help these brothers and sisters. Now, how to help them? That's a good question. Because once you start thinking that you are so much holier than thou, then the danger starts. And this is a corruption of many pastors and preachers and priests and church leaders that I see. No way some little scrub who has been reading the Bible for 6-8 months is going to know more than me. Went to seminary school. I did all the important stuff that makes me better. I'm better prepared because I know all the Bible verses. I can recite them to you. I can make theological arguments. Give Christian apologetics. Sadly, that is how we get twisted and manipulated. It's how it begins. No. It begins with purity. If you've gotten a revelation from Christ, if you've gotten that that feeling of the presence of the Lord. It starts in glory. It starts with an overwhelming peace, a wisdom that is granted to you through the Holy Spirit. And some of us think, well, I've gotten the Holy Spirit, I've gotten all this wisdom, I've gotten all this, so I am the chosen one. Do you know how many times that I've been tempted with that notion? Oof. There it is. See? The pine needle came down right as soon as I said that. I've been tempted with that all over. I've been tempted with so many things. So many times. But you know what? Living through hell for as long as I did, I realized I don't want to ever go back to leaning on my own understanding. I don't want to ever go back to a place where I am my own God. Even though all my desires and all my hopes and dreams live in that place. Because that place is darkness and gnashing of teeth and weeping and separation from God. But it's so easy and you know what? That's the devil's best weapon in his arsenal. His best manipulation. To think that we are so holy in serving God. I'm going to try to get to where the wind isn't rushing in here. Let's see here. Oh, it's coming in this way, so I'm going to go over here. There we go. This big old pine tree. You might have dropped a needle on me, but I'm going to use you to block the wind. These manipulations will corrupt us to our core. And you are not immune from it, I guarantee you. And we will always think that we know better. But if we always filter our thoughts, always follow in the footsteps of Christ, sure, you're still going to sin. You're still going to have these manipulations tempting you. You're going to have seductions. Jesus Christ was seduced by the devil. But he denied that temptation. He denied the devil who offered him everything to be the king of all, to have water when he was thirsty, to you name it. Devil's offering it up to Jesus because Jesus was the biggest threat to him. Always will be, always is. And if Jesus went through it, then you're going to go through it too. And you know who seemed to go through it maybe even more than Jesus? That would be the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul waged a spiritual war unlike anyone we've ever seen. And he lost so many of those battles if we look at it from a standpoint of Sun Tzu Art of War type thing. But if we look at it through the guidebook to spiritual war that we are supposed to be looking at, which is the Bible, the scriptures, the gospels, the epistles even, then he was the greatest victor that always got beaten. It's very similar to to the movie Braveheart. Only we'd have to say Braveheart started as a bad man. But the attacks that Paul had on him and the wars that he waged were incredible. Just like William Wallace, Mel Gibson in Braveheart. He began to win these wars nobody thought that he should be winning. He had no reason, he had no right to win those wars, just like the Revolutionary War. We had no right to win those wars, those colonists. But the Apostle Paul had a strength that was, well, it was prepared in the furnaces of hell. Because when he was, his days as a Pharisee, when he thought he was so holy, when he thought Christianity had to be snuffed out, not just kill the Christians, you had to torture them first. And you have St. Stephen being stoned to death on the Apostle Paul's orders. When you are prepared in the furnaces of hell, you become a sword of God. Or you become a sword of the devil. And that's your choice. And the Apostle Paul could have easily given into those temptations. Easily. The lust, he had women throwing themselves at him. But the physical, he had shipwrecks. He was whipped repeatedly, over and over. He was stoned and left for dead. He was bitten by a venomous snake. He was imprisoned. He was mocked. He was shamed. He was so many more things. Because we only hear about a part of his time. All of his spiritual attacks are not even recorded. But the greatest, one of the spiritual attacks that he received that caught my attention was the thorn in his side. Now, the Apostle Paul, he didn't complain all these times. He's there getting, like I said, after the second shipwreck. Come on, man. After the fourth flogging. Come on, man. There's only so much we can take. But the Apostle Paul didn't complain about it. What he complained about was that thorn in his side. And we think, what? Are you kidding me? Why would he complain about that when he's being whipped? When he was stoned and left for dead and he didn't complain about it. But he asked God, please take this thorn from my side. And we don't understand what it truly meant until we look at the original translations. And the original meaning of what the thorn in his side was. It was an actual spiritual attack. The thorn in his side, and I apologize for these leaves. I'm going to be walking just over to the lake here and I'll not be crunching as much. The thorn in his side was supposedly a demonic spear tip. A demonic spear tip. Now, he doesn't say exactly how he got this. He doesn't say a lot about it, except for he asked God to please remove this demonic spear tip. And look at this beauty behind me. I have to point it out every time, because this is one of my favorite places. But I'm going to walk down here, and it's mostly in the sand, so it won't be as crunchy. But the demonic spear tip, it was kind of confusing, but it obviously was so painful and so bad that he just prayed to God, please take this spear tip out of my side. But God didn't do it. God said no. God said, you are going to keep that spear tip in there. He didn't even say that much. He just said, nope. But then he gave Paul the revelation, because Paul had the Holy Spirit working in him maybe more than any person on record that we know. The Apostle Paul was able to not only just heal people in the name of Christ, not only just teach the Gospels and have them spread so far, so fast, and so articulately explain Christ's teachings. The Apostle Paul, they said that people would pass him and people would reach out to him, just like they did with Jesus. They'd reach out trying to get, heal me. And they said that some people would be healed by actually touching his garment, just a part of the cloth that he was wearing. And then they were able to go themselves out and heal others that he was not able to get to. That's how powerful the Holy Spirit was working through the Apostle Paul, that God was working through the Apostle Paul, that Jesus Christ was working through that. But we see that even though he was favored by God so much, he had to go through the trials. Because what would have happened if on the road to Damascus, where then Saul was blinded, and then Jesus sent the man Ananias to go and heal him from his blindness. What happens if that was it? Then he's just like, okay, I'm going to preach the gospel. And it, just like maybe some of the other apostles, how it went so great. They might have received some persecution, but not on any kind of level like Paul received. He wouldn't have been forged in the fires of hell. Because a soldier in war has to keep training as the war evolves. A policeman will say, you must keep training. You must know what the new drugs on the street are, what the new tactics the criminals are using are. And if you don't know these things, if you don't keep up on your training, then you're going to be ill prepared. And so Paul said that God kept that spear tip in my side to keep from getting conceited. Because I was always conceited and I had to be put in my place. And listen to me. If you are born again, if you are seeking God, you will be tested. And at some point, Most of you will think this is not worth it. Why would I live like this? It's not worth it for something I don't even know is true. But that's another trick the devil plays. The doubt. Oh, the doubt. If you are genuine in your seeking, you will find the truth of Jesus Christ. The truth of Jesus Christ is evident in history. He's the most documented figure in ancient history, by far. And it was shortly after his death and resurrection that the Gospels, they were already there. What do you think that the apostles were teaching? They were teaching the Gospels. They were teaching the teachings of Jesus Christ. And the early church fathers have 95% of the Gospels recorded in their writings and teachings. And that was just years and decades after Christ's death and resurrection. So the truth, if you're actually seeking it, will be evident to you. If it's not evident through your personal experience, like it was for me, see, that's what came first for me. And that's what I hope comes first for you. Because when God saved me, it was no doubt left. But when I say that, the doubt always will creep back in. That's spiritual attacks. Saying, well, what if? What if all these signs you're getting means you're just delusional? What if these animals coming up to you, or just because the animals are trained in this area or something? You'll tell yourselves all kinds of things to make yourself think. This is the reality of it, not a divine encounter. Why? Because it's a spiritual attack. The devil doesn't want you fighting against him. The devil doesn't want some special forces soldier who is going to be a major threat to him, like the Apostle Paul. How many times did the devil try to kill the Apostle Paul? It was over and over and over again. And over again. But the Apostle Paul didn't give in to those spiritual attacks. He was prepared for them. He said, no, my life was forfeit. I am nothing without Jesus. I am a servant of Christ and nothing else. My only identity is through Jesus Christ. I think I heard my deer. Right when I said that, I heard my deer running. Oh, my boys and girls, my brothers and sisters. It is beautiful when you are in the graces of Jesus. And why should you continue like this? Well, that's a decision only you can make. But from my experience, I can promise you that you will never have meaning and purpose in your life to this extent. The ultimate meaning and the ultimate purpose and the ultimate hope. Hope that will take you through the darkest pits of hell with a smile on your face. Hope where you can see your world falling apart. And you're like, well, that's not good. Wow. Sometimes I see the spiritual attacks on me. And I'm kind of honored now that I understand through the Apostle Paul mainly. I'm kind of honored that the devil thinks I'm this big of a threat, because I didn't have that much self-worth myself. I didn't think myself that much of a threat. I didn't think I had that much to offer anyone. And if I am that loved by Jesus to be one of his servants, but listen to me, a servant to him is not like what we think. Oh, you're a lowly servant. We are a servant of Jesus because he was a servant of us. He came here as a suffering servant. He washed the feet of his disciples. He gave to the poor, to the needy. He healed the sick. And so we need to be a servant to him, and to him, through him, we reflect that love and that mercy and that grace to anyone we can find around us. That is what it's all about. That is what it's all about. There he is, shining through. Beautiful sunset. I'm going to give you one last glimpse of this beautiful day. This beautiful day. Look at this. It is so magnificent when you're living in the arms of Jesus Christ. And I'm so heartbroken when I see so many who are calling just fall away. Say, well, there's only so much I can take. I can't give in. I can't handle this lust. I can't handle this desire. I can't handle all the temptation. Maybe you have a wife or children who just can't see the glory of Christ and don't understand the transformation that you've gone through. Now, there were times when my wife didn't understand. And my kids, they're still young, so I'm teaching them, and it's harder for them to understand. Oh, Daddy, you wanted your life to be over? Really? What about us? That's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But when they get older, going to understand, no, it's not because I didn't love you that I wanted my life to be over. It's because I loved you so much. Because I felt like I was an anchor on you, and that's how I justified that feeling. But I would have never, ever taken my own life, even though at times I felt like I wanted to. But to teach a young kid that you must hate your life, that's a challenge. But I'm up for any challenge. Any challenge. And you just tell them. You tell anyone. Life is hard. Life is going to beat you down. You're going to say, there's nothing that makes me happy anymore. Why am I even alive? At some point in your life, unless you are very, very lucky. I guess if you're that lucky, then probably you're not going to have a calling. In that case, I don't know what happens to those who are not called. Only God knows. But as far as what Jesus told us, many are called, few are chosen. And I'm going to do everything I can to be worthy to walk through that narrow door. All right, everybody. I love you all so much. Have a great week.